Inside a factory in Dhaka, 1,800 men's woven denim shirts sit packed in cartons, stranded after a European retailer's sudden buying freeze. The factory is on the clock. They have exactly 30 days to clear this warehouse space for new production, creating an immediate need for a liquidity event. Weeks later, a garments wholesaler purchased this exact lot and generated a gross profit of $7,380 in a matter of weeks. This level of profitability, a return on investment of nearly 100%, was not the result of speculative hustling or a lucky find. It was the output of a rigid mathematical framework. To understand how these margins are engineered, we will track the unit economics of this specific transaction, chronologically, from the initial factory contact to the final P&L ledger. In professional sourcing, success is defined by operational sequencing, not by simply stumbling upon cheap goods. The factory's initial asking price was $3.80 per unit. A professional buyer's first rule is to refuse negotiation on price until the structural viability of the lot is confirmed. This chart breaks down the 1,800 units across the size curve. The data shows a heavy concentration in medium at 28% and large at 33%. For this buyer's European and Middle Eastern accounts, these are the highest demand sizes. The distribution is mathematically sound for their distribution network. Next, the buyer had to address legal liability. The garments were fully finished with the original retailer's private labels already attached. Inspection confirmed the neck labels were generic manufacturer tags. The factory agreed to remove the branded hang tags at no cost, making the lot legally rebrandable. If the size ratio was skewed or the original retail brand was woven into the garment body, the deal would be rejected regardless of the price. Once the lot was deemed viable, the buyer commissioned a third-party physical inspection in Dhaka to examine a random 125-piece sample. The inspection found 7 failed pieces, yielding a 5.6% major defect rate. Extrapolating that rate across the full 1,800 units identifies approximately 101 defective pieces. This represents a documented yield loss. The buyer used this specific data point to shift the negotiation. They weren't asking for a discount. They were demanding a mathematical adjustment based on documented defects. This evidence-based approach drove the price down from $3.80 to $3.20 per unit, while securing the factory's commitment to replace missing buttons. Leverage in international sourcing is not just a conversational tactic. It is the strict application of third-party defect data. With the purchase price set, the buyer moves to the financial modeling phase. No purchase is finalized until the fully loaded landed cost is calculated. The calculation begins with the $3.20 FOB price. We add local transport at 10 cents and sea freight at 23 cents. Import duties at 38 plens, plus 10 cents inland freight. Inspection and tags add 31 cents, totaling a $4.21 landed cost. Professional operators base their risk profile on this $4.21 figure. The factory's initial $3.80 quote is a distraction. The landed cost is the only number that dictates the margin. While the shipping container is out on the water, the buyer is already executing a multi-tier distribution plan. Amateurs buy inventory and hope to find a buyer. Professionals secure the distribution channels before they pay the factory. In this case, the buyer secured informal commitments for 1,500 of the 1,800 units before the purchase was finalized, effectively neutralizing the commercial risk. The primary channel takes 900 units at $9.50 to supply European stores. A second allocation of 600 larger units goes to a Middle East buyer at $8.50. The remaining 300 units, including defective pieces, cleared to a discount buyer for $4.50, guaranteeing full revenue. Mapping supply to pre-existing distribution tiers guarantees the margin structure before the goods even reach the warehouse. When we reconcile the ledger, the combined revenue from all 3 channels totals exactly $15,000. Against a fully loaded cost of $7,581, the transaction achieves a gross margin of nearly 50%. Real-world variables still appear. During final sorting, 8 additional defective units were discovered beyond the original estimate. Factoring in those extra defects, the final ledger shows a gross profit of $7,380. This represents a 97% return on the initial capital invested. This profit was only possible because the buyer didn't skip the triage steps. A failure to check the labels could have left them with $7,500 in unsellable IP-infringing inventory. The outcome was protected by process. Conservative modeling allowed the transaction to absorb unexpected defects while still delivering a massive return. This case study is a demonstration of supply chain discipline. The profit didn't happen because a factory made a mistake. It happened because a buyer knew how to value a stranded asset correctly. Relationship-driven access gave the buyer the first look, but the framework gave them the confidence to execute. In this business, consistent returns are not the result of finding magical deals. They come from knowing precisely how to process a standard one. Whether you are scaling an operation or just starting out, remember, profitability is the output of an ordinary process applied with absolute rigor.